Hey guys, welcome to Sebastian Raw. This is my first one. This is just a pretty much a candid video on some topics. I mean, this is going to be an ongoing video series on my YouTube channel, Fitness Secrets TV, and on my Facebook page. I've been wanting to do this for a while. It's just an opportunity to sort of share some thoughts and perspectives on life. If I feel like I want to share something, I can do that. Just jump down in front of the camera here and just talk to you guys or anyone that's interested in hearing what I've got to say. Essentially, I'm just in my apartment. I live on my own. No dogs, no cats, no fish. I'm 42 this year. I essentially feeling pretty good in life. I'm enjoying being on my own. These days seem to be more about my own personal progression and my businesses, and I'm really enjoying it. Now, I think this first video, I was thinking, oh, what am I going to talk about? Where am I going to start? And I think the essential part of all of this is just one, for me, getting a bit more comfortable in the sense of being able to express myself in this sort of format. Two, I thought, well, I'll pretty much go back to the beginning. Not right back to the beginning, but the beginning in the sense of when I really sort of pushed forward in my own life and went after what I sort of wanted to chase down. I had lots of goals when I was younger, and I've always been in business. I've been doing business for as long as I can remember. It was ingrained in me from my family. Dad was always into new businesses, and I just really enjoyed it. And I've owned businesses since I was about 16. But you can read more of that on my website. But essentially, what I wanted to share with you today was some thoughts about some lessons that I learned from my mother. Now, I grew up with my mum. It was a broken family. Obviously, that happens quite often these days. So it was just her and myself. I was an only child in Canberra. Lived here my whole life, pretty much in the 80s. Grew up I was born in the 70s, but grew up in the 80s and went to school here in Canberra. I've been here my whole life, various different schools as well. And life was different back then. You could play outside until it was 9 o'clock. You didn't have to worry about locking doors, and you could leave your bike on the front grass. And I think anyone that sort of was in that era, you see the memes racing around Facebook, they all relate to that type of life. And things have turned into this very politically correct, fear-mongering society. That's a lot of that's got to do with our government and our media. But I'm not going to talk too much about that today. What I want to talk to you about was lessons that I learnt from my mum. Now, she was the greatest influence of my life, obviously, being my mother. She passed, unfortunately, in the year 2000, very suddenly. She had died from an asthma attack. And I won't go right into the story of how that all sort of unfolded. It was something that her and I had to deal with for quite a few years leading up to when I decided to move out. But I remember my girlfriend at the time coming and catching up with me on I think it was a driveway of her house, and she had to pass the bad news to me that my mother had passed away. And I couldn't believe it at the time. It was sort of like, get out of town, what are you talking about? So it was sort of very surreal sort of circumstances. And looking back, I sort of feel for Lexi having to give me that news. I think I was a bit pissed off at my old man at the time. I think that it was probably something he should have done, but that's private. You're probably going to hear it now, but that's another story. I suppose these are things you deal with at the time. You have to deal with them pretty quickly. And I suppose 16 years on, I've learnt a lot. I think I went into a bit of a I suppose it was a whirlwind of emotion at the time, because I was so close to my mother, and and I really went after things. I went hard at my sport, I went hard at my business, I just went hard pretty much, and I've been pretty relentless ever since. So I think the big thing for me is that I've learnt lots of things. I've made lots of mistakes. I've made lots of really good decisions. I've really learnt a lot from having a go pretty much. Doing the businesses and chasing down my dreams has been probably the most liberating and empowering thing I could have ever done. And one thing I remember my mum saying, it was probably about the December. She passed in March, so it was about 4 months before she passed away. I remember her saying to me before she drove off, and we were in the street, she goes, Sabby, are you happy? And it stuck in my head, because it was pretty much one of the last things she asked me before she passed, because it was a one-on-one. I think we had a few phone calls and things in between, but that's all I really can remember was the last thing she said to me, are you happy? And at the time I wasn't. I wasn't happy, and I couldn't answer that. Like, how do you answer your mother a question like that? You just sort of, sure, of course I am, Mum, I love you too, and sort of let it go. But I think 16 years on, I've sort of realised, no, I wasn't at the time, and I made a lot of, I suppose, living in the now decisions. A lot of them, I don't regret any of them. I think some of them were great, and I've learned so much. But one thing I can say about Mum is that what I'm happy about now is the opportunities she gave me at the time. I could play any sport I want. Or if anything, I was playing 4 sports at once. She'd drive me around to all the ovals and the training. And she was a one-man band, one mum band, and she did a lot of things for me. We did the scouts, and I suppose I achieved the highest level of scouts and venturers, and we had a really good scout group. We did a lot of bushwalking, and we did a lot of activities. It was actually a really good group. So I learnt all of these things from an early age. She used to take me to Indonesia and overseas. We went overseas quite often. Even she'd take me out of school for about a month. And at the time, you take them for granted. You just do what Mum says. And she was very anti sort of establishment, anti-government sort of thing. So if she felt that she wanted to take me away to teach me a life lesson, something like travel, she did that. And like looking back, it was priceless, and I'll probably do the same for my kids, looking back at the experiences that you gain from those opportunities, especially when you're young, all that information that you get, and I think there was some other things. She was very supportive of me doing, jobs and things like that. I was a milk runner, and I had a vending machine company, and all these sort of things when I was really young, and I went into sort of independent type of businesses from an early age. I had a landscaping company and these sort of things, and I was writing invoices out and having someone else pay them. And I think that's the first thing you do. That sort of legitimizes you as an independent sole trader. It's when you start writing invoices out. She also taught me a lot about saving money. So the first lesson I got from her was the opportunities. So opportunities to do these things, to play the sports, the scouts, going overseas, all the bushwalking, the hiking, and learning how to save money. I had my own bank accounts, and we were very, very strict about it. And I think that was one of the one thing I would like to share with people who are interested is, make sure you, especially as a parent, make sure you provide your kids with opportunities to learn and experience things. The second thing that I learned was dinner at the table. There's only 2 of us. It was a thing. When we cooked, I cooked a lot of meals. She cooked a lot of meals. I was very independent as a kid. And so we would always get together at dinner, and we had a very close relationship. We'd never talk trash, so sometimes we were actually sitting there in silence and eating our food, but it's hard to explain unless you've done it for a long period of time. And I think it was one of the greatest things that I've learned was, being at the table with your family is special. The only times we didn't do it was when the World Series cricket came on, something like that. We were allowed to go down on the couch and watch Dean Jones come out and either get a duck or get 50. That was living in the 80s, and it was great. So dinner at the table was an awesome one. And my mum was pretty hardcore. She was extreme. She was outside of the box, I'd say. A lot of people didn't quite understand her. She was into astrology. She was the best mum in the world, of course. So obviously with all these things that she provided me, I think the third lesson she taught me was respect and to not take things for granted. And one of the simple things she made me do, she made me earn TV time. Now, I don't watch TV as much these days. I think it's been changed. There's a lot of programming going on, literally. But what she used to do was she used to make these little cards, and she cut these cards up, and it was broken up into 15-minute blocks. So these little 15-minute sections I had to earn. So essentially I had to do certain chores around the house and buy my time for TV. And I learned very, very quickly that I had to do the work to get certain privileges. Things like, TV was back. It was good back then. We had Doctor Who, we had Astro Boy, and we had the goodies and those sort of things. You wanted to watch those, but I had to trade in my cards. Now, 15 minutes doesn't get you a full show. So, that's a pretty extreme sort of way of teaching someone respect, I suppose, or learning how to earn your stripes as such, but it worked. Another one for me would have been lay-bys. She made me lay by pretty much everything. One, we didn't have a lot of money, and two, the fact of having a lay-by, you sort of learnt to respect the whole process of saving money and applying it to a goal. And the goal was to essentially buy whatever it was. Most of the time it was quite expensive things like cricket bats and stuff. Those things back then were pretty expensive. $100, $200 was quite a lot of money, and you learn very quickly that these sort of things are very important. The next thing she taught me would be independence. Independence was pretty much put upon me because I was the only child, and we were in a very close-knit family. It was up to me I had to show responsibility from a very early age. I had to, obviously look after the security of the house and make sure I was at home on time, and I had to cook a lot of times. Mum had a normal job, and obviously was working 9 to 5. Sometimes she, obviously with traffic and things, get back after 6, so I'd been home for already 2 or 3 hours. All these sort of things gave me an early independence, and I suppose even in regards to my own thinking, there was no one else around, so you didn't have I suppose siblings to joke with or play games with, so you tended to use your imagination, or you were diligent in the sense of occupying yourself with whatever it was. I read a lot of books and obviously did a lot of creating, a lot of drawing, and a lot of those sort of things. That's sort of part of who I am. Again, I could call that an opportunity. Would I change it? No. Next thing was respect. So the next lesson was definitely respect. Respect is something you don't see as much these days, and even on social media a lot. There's a lot of people selling themselves out at the sake of attention, or for the sake of some sort of perceived perception. I think there's a lot of self-respect that goes into the way you behave on a daily basis, the way you write, the way you speak. You need to install it with the people around you. If you're going to talk like a douchebag and behave like a douchebag, you're going to create more douchebags. That's how I look at it. So from a leadership point of view, respect, you've got to show that respect. It doesn't mean you live a boring life, but you've got to show respect to yourself and what you do, the decisions you make, and you find that that will flow over into the people around you, and you'll actually attract stronger, more leadership or leader-based type of people, and for me, I prefer that. I don't really want to surround myself with weakness as much. I'm happy to breed the opportunity for people to explore self-respect and integrity and independence, and then they can become leaders, and that's what I installed, and I think that should be something that this generation, next generation, should be doing more of, is show the respect for yourself and build up the people around you. Next thing, integrity. I've heard people talk about integrity. Integrity is a personal thing, but the thing is, as soon as someone else talks about your integrity, they've already diminished their own. I think integrity is something that you hold close to yourself. You don't necessarily share with anyone else. It's your guidelines, your values are all very, very much entwined with this whole concept of integrity. If you want to show integrity, then you do what's right for you, and you concentrate and focus on that. If things aren't quite going your way and you start pointing the finger at other people, you need to maybe just take a step back have a think about what you're doing, and focus on what you can control, and maybe work forward based around your values and what you can deliver and what you're passionate about. And you'll find that most often or not, you'll protect your integrity, and you'll also start finding a level of content and happiness in your life. Another thing Mum taught me was definitely to be myself. She always asked me, how do I feel about this, how do I do that? She always allowed me to express myself through sport and through my own leadership, through art, and there was never a moment where she brought me down. She played a lot of music. She allowed me to explore different instruments. I didn't quite align with instruments that well. I played in the band and played guitar and clarinet, but it wasn't something I really loved. I've actually made some music on some electronic music in the last few years. I really enjoyed that, but it takes so much time, and you sort of go through phases. But I think the one thing you can learn and take from this is being yourself is integral to you living a happy life, because one, you can express yourself the way you want to express. You're going to chase down goals and dreams, and more often or not align yourself with jobs or career-based opportunities that you are passionate about. If you're in an environment where there's someone who brings you down for, you might like expressing yourself in a certain way, you might, your characteristics or a personality trait, and if they're laughing at you and bringing you down or making you feel guilty for whatever that thing is, you've got to get out. Remove these people. You don't need them. It must be hard when you work in things like places like the public service and other team-based environments, but first thing I would say, if you can't fix it due to that environment, I would look at leaving and realign with an environment that allows you to be yourself. So important. I did a blog on my Online Coaching Australia website the other day about quitting, or basically elements of failure. Now, I've failed heaps of times. I've also succeeded lots of times due to the fact that I've failed so many times. And obviously, when you fall flat on your face, you learn how to get back up off the ground. And I think after a while you get sick of falling flat on your face. So what you do is you set up a core base of understanding of who you are, a level of resilience, and I've definitely got that. I've got a lot of tenacity. I admit that. That's just who I am. And one thing I can say is I don't like to quit, but one thing I have learned is there's certain things in life where you need to maybe pull back on certain aspects of your life if they're, one, not aligned with who you are, or you're not passionate about it, or the environment's wrong, or it's not making you happy. These sort of things, these are tough decisions, especially if it's business or a family. You probably can't escape too much. But if it's a business or some sort of something that you're surrounded with more often, some days you've got to make the hard call and actually leave. And that's when I would actually suggest quitting. Get out while you can. Find an environment that allows you to be happy. So never quit when it's a goal, but also just keep in the back pocket that wild card to remember that you can quit, and it's okay. It's okay to make life adjustments. So there's no harm in making those tough calls for yourself. Next one would be tenacity. Okay, tenacity is probably more of a genetic thing. I suppose it's just a relentless focus on what's important for me. I think it's something that becomes a little bit more, I suppose, clearer as you get older in life, and I call them clarity moments. Once you've been really honest with yourself, you can then seek what I call clarity. Now, clarity or your aha moments. And I'm going to do another video on this, because it's actually 5 steps of direction that I actually talk to my clients about, and they're integral to building a foundation of understanding of what you want to achieve in life. So coming back to tenacity is the thing that's going to help you push through at times when you need it the most. You can call it consistency, or you can call it perseverance, or you can call it being tough. whatever you want to call it your own thing. But just remember, if you really want something in life and it means something to you, you got to be show a relentless drive and show some tenacity and getting things done. Persevere, don't quit, unless you got to get out. There's a difference. Now, they're pretty much my main lessons I learnt from my mum. She was the greatest mum in the world, and I miss her a lot. I'm looking at setting up a foundation, but I'm going to talk about that later. So, 1, ask yourself, are you happy? 2, what are your opportunities like in life? Are you presenting the same opportunities to your family and kids? Do you want to explore greater opportunities? Go and look for them. Number 3 was dinner at the table. Get back to dinner at the table, okay? Talk about your day, even if it's for 20 minutes, okay? Some days there will be silence. That is just as good, okay? TV time vouchers, I'm not going to say go and do that, but teaching and installing respect through the family is pretty important. You've got to find your way. Get creative. There's no harm in being creative. And, things like independence and respect and integrity, I think it comes down to people asking themselves the right questions. Are you living by your values? Okay, I'm going to leave that there for now. I've got another video and I'm going to talk a bit more with you guys if you're interested, and I look forward to hearing back from feedback from my clients, especially from me in the gym at Elements for Life, and anyone else across this world, because we've got YouTube and the advantage of sharing information now. So I'll tune off and I'll see you next time on Sebastian Raw. Thanks for tuning in.